Recently I've been studying about the sanctuary message. And when we study sanctuary, we know that the sanctuary is divided into three compartments: the outer court, the holy place, and the most holy place. Just focusing on the outer court experience helps me understand the depth of love that Christ had for us. That the outer court experience shows me that love is greater than sin. Like, love is the ultimate cure for sin. Love conquers all. If not for the love of Christ that he had for us, he could have destroyed Adam and Eve and just created the world all again from the beginning. But no, because he knows that his love conquers all, he decided to slay that animal that he did with Adam, put on the coat on their bodies, and then 4,000 years later he decided to die for us. So that makes me know how deep of a love that Christ has for his children. And when we study also the sanctuary, knowing that it was Jesus that had to go through all of that, we go back to the creation story, we see that it was actually Christ that created us. Christ created this earth. Christ created everybody. Christ created you and me. And for Christ to be God, for Christ to be as much of a God as God the Father is, and as much of a God as God the Spirit is, and still decided to reduce himself to the form of a man, live about 30 years in form of man, and then suffered all of that thing on the cross just because somebody sinned. Even if Adam and Eve did not sin, and 4,000 and something years later one person sinned, Christ would have still died for us. Sometimes we wonder, like, who am I? Even in Psalms 8, the angel said, "What is man that thou art so mindful of?" But when you think about it, when it was God that created us, and when he created us in his image. That means when God was creating you, everything he had in him as God did he use to create you. There is no spot of mistake that he committed in creating you. And then when you think about Christ having infinite wisdom, now think about infinite wisdom creating man. When God created me, Ogachukwu, he created me in the best possible form he could have ever thought to create me. He created me everything he had as God to create me. I cannot have any substitute on this earth, above this earth, underneath this earth. I cannot have any substitute from now to eternity, because all that God needed to create me, he already used in creating me. So, coming back to the sanctuary message, because of this message, whenever a thought of sin crosses my heart, and I am conscious of my sin, it makes me aware. It takes me back to the cross. Ogachukwu, no, you cannot do this, because God did all of this for you so that you could live eternal life. So I'm so grateful that God created me. Sometimes people complain that, how is it that God, I'm so tired of this earth, I'm so tired of life, why did God create me? Would you have preferred that God left you as dust? Or would you have preferred that God created you as a tree, or created you as an animal, rather than creating you in his own image? I'm so grateful that God created me in his own image. I'm so grateful that God created me to be this gender that I am. I'm so grateful that God saw it fit that he would still die for me. When we look outside of God to satisfy our deepest needs, it is impossible, because God created us. When we look outside of God to satisfy hope, it is impossible, because God created us. If we look outside of God to satisfy our joy, it is impossible, because God created us. C.S. Lewis said, God cannot give us a happiness and peace apart from himself, because it is not there. There is no such thing. And again, when you think about it, who else could satisfy the deepest desire of your heart than the one who created your heart to desire? So if you're suffering from addictions, if you're suffering from sins, if you're suffering from finding yourself, from finding the true meaning of yourself, I suggest that you go back to God. I suggest that you go back to God. Everybody has a void that only God could fulfill in their heart. And you know what? God also has a void in his heart that only you can fulfill in his heart. Why? Because you are the one with a specific personality, specific individuality about God that nobody else on this world can exuberate better than you. You cannot have, I can't stress this anymore, any further. You cannot have any other substitute. Not even an angel can stand in your place, because God has created with some unique qualities that only you can exhibit better than anybody else that's ever been created and that will ever be created. So, with all of this being said, I take you back. There is hope in God. There is hope in Jesus. Titus 1:1-2 says, Paul, a servant of God and an apostle of Jesus Christ, according to the faith of God's elect and the acknowledging of the truth, which is after godliness, in hope of eternal life, which God, that cannot lie, promised before that began.